Today, we're going to talk about something deeply human: identity, dignity, and how our medical and legal systems can better understand and support people who are intersex or transgender, especially those going through or who've completed their transition. This isn't just Today, we're going to talk about something deeply human: identity, dignity, and how our medical and legal systems can better understand and support people who are intersex or transgender, especially those going through or have completed their transition. This isn't just about laws or medicine, it's about real people, real stories, and how we can make sure we're treating them with care, fairness, and respect. We'll explore the rights guaranteed in our Constitution, how intersex conditions can be understood and presented in legal settings, and what medical transition looks like from hormones to surgery. More than anything, I hope this gives you both the knowledge and the heart to approach these matters with confidence, compassion, and professionalism. Before we dive in, let me briefly walk you through what we'll cover. This presentation is not advocacy. It's a structured examination of how our legal and medical systems interact with the lived realities of individuals who are either intersex or transsexual, including those mid transition or post transition. First, we'll begin with the legal framework, including the relevant provisions of the 1987 Philippine Constitution that deal with self expression, privacy, and bodily integrity, and how these are interpreted in context involving sex and gender. Then we'll move into biological and psychosocial aspects. What exactly constitutes intersex variation from a medical standpoint, and what's involved in gender transition, both physically and psychologically? This is important groundwork because it informs the kinds of documentation and expert opinions needed in legal settings. From there, we'll focus on the civil law dimension, how courts evaluate petitions to change registry entries, how intersex conditions are substantiated through medical evidence, and what Philippine jurisprudence has said so far, especially the few landmark rulings we do have. We'll also go through medical transition, looking at the progression from hormone therapy to surgical interventions, and what medical legal obligations arise, like informed consent, capacity assessments, fertility counseling, and documentation. Lastly, we'll round off with key issues emerging in current Philippine practice, like the absence of uniform gender recognition laws, privacy and data issues, and the need for coordinated protocols in handling such cases. The goal today is to provide structured, medically informed legal insight into a subject that is often misunderstood and give professionals like us a clearer view of what we need to document, prove, and protect in medical legal work. This topic sits at the rich intersection of medicine, law, and human identity. Specifically, how our healthcare systems, legal systems, and institutions engage with people whose sex characteristics or gender identity diverge from binary norms. The two principal groups we're examining are intersex persons, those born with variations of sex characteristics, and trans persons, who may be in transition or have completed gender affirming procedures. In the Philippine context, we are working with legal frameworks that are still evolving. There exist important rights and protections, but also significant gaps. Thus, clarity about medico-legal roles is especially important. Under the 1987 Constitution, key rights relevant to intersex and trans persons include freedom of expression in Article 3, Section 4, the right to privacy, Section 3, the right to be secure in one's person, Section 2, and equal protection of the laws, Section 1. These collectively form the foundational basis for recognizing personal identity and self-expression, including in matters of sex characteristics and gender identity. However, in practice, legal recognition of gender identity or intersex variation remains constrained. There is no national statute explicitly addressing gender recognition, and procedural remedies largely rely on Rule 108 of the Rules of Court, which was not originally designed for these types of corrections. As medical legal professionals, we must understand that while these rights exist in principle, the mechanisms to enforce or apply them in identity-related cases are limited or underdeveloped in current law and policy. This is a table showing the characteristics that differentiates the biological male, biological female, and the intersex. So as far as chromosomes are concerned, the biological male is typically XY and the female XX. However, in intersex persons, it may include an XXY, an XO, an XXYY, mosaic, or other atypical karyotypes. As far as the gonads are concerned, the typical biological male has testes while the biological female has ovaries. In intersex persons, however, they may have ovotestes, strict gonads, or gonadal ambiguity. Their hormones are different. For the male, they have higher testosterone levels, while for females, they have higher estrogen and progesterone levels. In intersex persons, the hormonal profile may be mixed or atypical for binary sex. External genitalia consists of the penis and the scrotum for the male, the clitoris, labia, and vaginal opening for the female. However, for intersex persons, they may have ambiguous genitalia, atypical phallic or clitoral development. The internal genitalia of males consist of seminal vesicles, the vas deferens, and prostate. While for the females, they have uterus, fallopian tubes, cervix, and vagina. In intersex persons, they may have partial, complete, or even mixed internal structures. Secondary sex traits for the males are facial and body hair, deeper voice, muscle mass. For the female, breast development, wider hips, and menstruation. For the intersex, traits may vary, overlap, or not align with chromosomal or gonadal sex. For biological male, they are typically sperm producing, and for the female, egg producing. In intersex persons, they often reduce or absent fertility. Some may be infertile or subfertile. The legal sex at birth is typically male for the biological male and female for the biological female. For the intersex, they may be assigned male or female, sometimes surgically altered in infancy. The medical classification is for the biological male, there is a consistent male pattern characteristics. And for the female, there's the consistent female pattern. Now for the intersex, they vary by condition. No? So it depends on what kind of condition that they are uh, that they have. The biological sex determinants consist of the genotype or sex chromosomes, the DNA, environmental factors, or it may be idiopathic, or an interaction of some of these determinants. This is an example of the human karyotype. So here we can see that the chromosomes are spread by length from the longest to the shortest. And this pairs is from 1 to 22. The 23rd pair consists of the sex chromosome, the X and Y or the X and X. The X and Y chromosome are very much different. The X chromosome is longer as compared with the Y chromosome. For sexual differentiation, early in life, we only have one pattern. But depending on the hormonal environment, the female the female who are uh, have a regular gonadal sex of XX would naturally um, produce hormones that will influence their secondary sexual characteristics as well as those of the male. The sperm determines the biological sex. So if an egg sperm fertilizes an egg, because all eggs are X's, then it becomes a female. Now it's if it's the Y sperm that fertilizes an egg, then it will be a male. Now the problem in some persons is that there is non-disjunction during spermatogenesis, which means that when the somatic cells that are destined to be sex cells or sperms, instead of splitting the X and Y sex chromosomes, there are cases where it is not split. So you end up with a sperm without a sex chromosome and another sperm with both sex chromosomes. It could be XY or even an XX or even a YY. So uh, we will explain this later, but if an egg sperm, if it's an egg fertilized by a sperm without a sex cell, and this will turn out to be a Turner syndrome female. If an XY sperm fertilizes an egg, this will result in a Klinefelter syndrome person, an XXY. Now, if an XX sperm fertilizes an egg, then this will have the person will have a triple X sex chromosome. We call it the metafemale or the X trisomy person. And then if a YY sperm fertilizes an egg, then it results in an XYY male. In the same manner, the eggs may be may experience non-disjunction during oogenesis, which means that from the somatic cells, which would normally split their sex chromosome into an X and X, There are cases wherein there is a non-disjunction and the eggs that would result would have no sex chromosome at all, or it may have a double X chromosome. No. So again, depending on what combination uh, the syndrome would appear. So for those eggs without sex chromosome, if it's fertilized by a Y chromosome, sperm, then the YO will not be viable because an organism cannot be viable without an X chromosome. If it's fertilized by an X sperm, then you have an XO, which is a Turner syndrome person. Or if it's fertilized by a Y or an X, but the egg uh, sex cells are not disjunct, separated, then you can either have a Klinefelter's, an XXY, or a metafemale triple X. So there are many cases of aneuploidy, and there are a lot of variations. So it depends on whether it's split or not split. So these are all the possibilities. Before, when only simple microscopes are used, we can distinguish whether a person is male or of genotypic female, no? By the presence of a bar body. The bar body, named after the discoverer Murray Barr, is the inactive X chromosome in a female somatic cell. So as you can see here in the figure, the bar bodies here, which are condensed X chromosomes, are found uh, near the membrane. While for the male cells, you cannot see any bar bodies because the males only have one X chromosome. Now, this is a Klinefelter syndrome person. So, a Klinefelter syndrome person can either have a 47 XXY, or they can have 48 triple XY, or 49 quadruple XY. And the incidence is 1 in 500 to 1,000 persons. And they are characterized by hypogonadism, meaning to say their genitalia are small and they are infertile. So you can see here in the karyotype of that person, there's only a double X chromosome, sex chromosome, and the Y chromosome here. Now, these are examples of persons with Klinefelter syndrome. The person on the red, the person who's wearing a red shirt, is actually a Klinefelter person. He's Fraser, and the wife is Nina. They got married in spite of infertility. And to solve this, because a Klinefelter person is infertile, Nina had an uh, intrauterine insemination with donor sperm, and they had 3 children. So, born as a male, on the other side, Laura Foster, born as a male, this famous South African model, chose to lead his life as a transgender. He was diagnosed with Klinefelter syndrome quite young and then pursued her life as a female. She rose to fame after modeling in South Africa and Paris. But was disqualified when she wanted to contest in the Miss South Africa beauty pageant. A Turner syndrome person has an X but no other sex chromosome. So they're shorter than normal with a webbed neck and abnormal sexual characteristic. The frequency is 1 out of 2,000 to 5,000 persons. So you can see here the karyotype. She only has one X chromosome and no other chromosomes. But you can live a normal and even a famous life, like this gymnast who is a Turner syndrome person, and Linda Hunt, the actress. A trisomy X or the triple X has three X chromosome. As you can see in the karyotype on the lower right hand, she has three X chromosomes. They are quite common, 1 in 1,000. They have a normal female phenotype. They're fertile and usually produce normal genotype babies. However, 60% of them need special education. For a person with an XYY or the Jacobs syndrome, this is much more common, 1 in 840 persons. They have a normal male phenotype. They're taller but not muscular, but you can exercise your muscles, you can be muscular also. They have fine motor coordination and speech disorders. Like this person who is Rua Dream Murphy. He's a professional rugby union player in Super Rugby. He was a member of the Ireland team at the Under 19 World Cup in Dubai before moving to Leinster Rugby and was part of the Under 26 Nations and Grand Slam winning side of 2007. So, males with XYY syndrome have normal intelligence, but maybe the intelligence may be lower than their siblings. They have learning disabilities and delays in speech development. So, they may not be able to process information or understand what is being said to them as fast as others of the same age. Now, the mosaics are quite special. The mosaics have different sets of chromosomes in different parts of their body. So that's why they're called mosaic. They have an ovotestis, but fertility is possible still. They can have an ambiguous genitalia, so you're unable to determine whether the person is a male or a female because they have both. The degree depending mainly on the amount of testosterone produced by the testicular tissue between 8 and 16 weeks of gestation. It is rare, so far undocumented, for both types of gonadal tissue to function. So this is a person with a mosaic, a 46XY, and a 46XX sex chromosome. So what happens is the eggs, uh, the the eggs are not separated. So if the eggs joins with a Y sperm, then they can have an XY. No? And then if the eggs join with X sperm, then you can have an XY. But early in their development, there is a fusion, which means that there is a double fertilization. So this happens. No? You can fertilize two ripe eggs at the same time, and then this fertilized ripe egg joins early in life. No? So the person that results is a mosaic. So it's just like a merged twin inside. The same thing here. No? So here you can have uh, a sperm that doesn't split. So the XY meets the X egg, resulting in an XXY. And then you have an X and a Y normal. So you have a mosaic of a normal and an XXY person. So you can see here that they have ambiguous genitalia. Another possibility is the 47XXY mosaic with a 45XO. So what happens here? The egg cell are not split, so one egg doesn't have a sex chromosome while the other one has a double. So if these are fertilized, you can have an XXY and an XO. And early in life, as I've said, that they're like twins that are merged together in one person. So you have a mosaic XXY and an XO. Another biological sex determinant is the DNA. So the question is, are all 46XX persons phenotypic males, or are all 46XY persons phenotypic male rather, and the other one is female? So, okay. Here's an example of 46XX. It's a genotypic female with normal estrogen. However, while they are developing and growing, they are virilized, meaning to say they have a female genotype, but their body becomes virilized, becoming more male because of the increased testosterone. So in this figure, you have a case of on the left side, a 35-year-old female with congenital adrenal hyperplasia, short stature, breast underdevelopment, and hirsutism or facial hair. On the right side is a 50-year-old male with congenital adrenal hyperplasia. He's a short stature and with abdominal obesity. So this means that the congenital adrenal hyperplasia can afflict not only females but also males as well. What happens in congenital adrenal hyperplasia is that commonly these are females, but as I have said, it may also be a male. There is a deficiency in the 21 hydroxylase hormone, which increases testosterone level um, and this 21 hydroxylase hormone is produced and manufactured through the CYP21A2 gene found in the sixth pair of chromosome. No? And this is due to a recessive gene. So this is a picture of Jeff Kagandahan with his wife. Now we'll go to the civil proof of intersex conditions. Rule 108 petitions for registry corrections can be can be filed. The required evidence would be chromosomal test, like what we showed, the karyotypes, hormonal profiles, whether the person has a predominantly testosterone or estrogen or progesterone. The anatomy and psychosocial history will also need to be presented. So the judicial precedent is the case of Republic versus Kagandahan. Now we go to transgender or transsexual persons. So here is a picture of a male, but who is actually a biological female. And this is an actual athlete. No? He looks phenotypically male, but actually uh, before she was a female. So this is Thomas Beatty, most spoken pregnant man ever. He lived as a beautiful woman into his 20s before taking male hormone therapy, but decided to keep his lady bits so that he and his wife could make babies, since she couldn't conceive herself, the wife. So biological and psychosocial dimensions of transsexual persons. For trans persons, we look at the divergence between assigned sex or observed sex at birth, and gender identity, a person's deeply felt understanding of their gender. The biological or medical dimension involves gender affirming hormonal therapy, which alters secondary sexual characteristics, and possibly surgical interventions, which may alter primary sexual anatomy. These steps carry implications for fertility, sexual function, long term health. On the psychosocial side, transitioning involves changes in social role, name change, legal identity, and often discrimination risk. In medical legal work, we must document hormonal and surgical interventions, understand their implications for legal identity, and anticipate issues around legal recognition, registration, and civil documentation. Let's examine the transition process and its medical legal implications. Hormonal therapy begins with baseline assessments, hormones, fertility counseling, bone density, mental health screening. Informed consent must address irreversible changes like fertility loss and anatomical changes. Surgical interventions may include chest or breast surgery, genital reconstruction, hysterectomy or oophorectomy in female to male persons. Each carries risk, bleeding, infection, loss of sensation, revision surgery, and long-term outcomes. Medico-legally, the clinician must assess and document capacity, obtain detailed consent, keep comprehensive records of pre and post operative status, and counsel about fertility and long term follow up. On the legal side, practitioners must recognize that medical transition does not automatically confer legal marker change, which means if you transition and alter your body, it will not automatically entitle you to make um, uh, your sex, as far as records are concerned, altered. For trans persons and their counsel, managing expectations is key. No? So you can have a transition, you can even have a sex change, but as far as the Philippines is concerned at the moment, um, you are not allowed to change your gender and other biological markers in forms, for example, in official forms. Uh, and the only time that you can be allowed to do that is in case where you are an intersex person. As legal professionals working at this intersection, we have several responsibilities. First, we should ensure valid informed consent and assess capacity, especially when irreversible procedures are involved or minors are affected. Because there's some cases wherein minors who underwent irreversible procedures are blaming their parents why they did not counsel them correctly. No. Second, maintain robust documentation. So we must have baseline tests, treatment records, surgery reports, follow-up records, all of which may be scrutinized in legal settings. Third, clarify your role. If you are treating the patient, you are not simultaneously acting as an expert witness because that would be a conflict of interest. Each role has different duties. Fourth, collaborate in a multidisciplinary manner. Cases often require endocrinologists or those who specializes in hormones and glands, surgeons, psychologists, legal counsel, and forensic documentation. Ensuring smooth coordination between these domains help assure both clinical integrity and legal admissibility. So that ends the presentation for this topic.